What is the deal with this card? Because on the surface, Ranar's abilities seem like they would be pretty straightforward. Especially this one here where it says when you exile one or more cards from your hand and or permanents from the battlefield, you create a 1/1 spirit creature token. But we do a little bit more sleuthing on the internet and we see that something's a little bit different. You see, before it was worded this way, but now they specify from a spell or ability. So what's the big deal? What does that change? Well, that depends, but the biggest change is to replacement effects. And you might ask, aren't replacement effects still abilities? Because that's the same question that I ended up asking. But what I've come to learn is that replacement effects are continuous effects. And a continuous effect can be generated by a spell or ability, or generated by a static ability. And static abilities can create continuous effects. So what does this all mean? Basically, it means that replacement effects are something that are generated from a spell or an ability, but they're not exactly spell or abilities themselves. Let's say I have a 3/3 elk on the battlefield, along with Samurai of the Pale Curtain and Ranar the Ever Watchful, and I cast Bone Splinters, destroying my own elk. To destroy means to move the permanent from the battlefield to its owner's graveyard, but we're replacing the event of putting it into the graveyard with an effect that would exile it instead. So in the end, it's not Samurai of the Pale Curtain that exiles the card. It's modifying the spell to say put the card into the graveyard from the battlefield to put the card into exile from the battlefield, which means Bone Splinters was the spell that would exile that card. But if I were to sacrifice the elk for the cost of Bone Splitters, now I'm exiling due to a cost rather than the effect of a spell, so it won't trigger. If I bolted the 3/3 elk, it would end up being destroyed and then getting exiled. Being destroyed due to lethal damage is done by state-based action rather than an effect of a spell or an ability. So in that instance, Ranar would not trigger as well. So basically, it's not the replacement effect itself that is doing the exiling, it's modifying the event, and the event is what is doing the exiling. Whether that be a state-based action, exiling to a cost, or exiling due to the actual spell or ability. But speaking of 3/3 elks, shout out to 3/3 elk for suggesting the idea for this video. I recommend you check them out on the internet, they make some good stuff too.